Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm really glad you could be here because today we're talking about how to build a highly profitable company from the ground up. Look, most businesses that are started in this country fail because they don't know a lot of the principles that we're going to talk about today. But today's not really about just succeeding as a business. It's actually making a highly profitable company. How do you do it the right way where you're actually putting a lot of money in your pocket while helping a lot of people? So with us today is Mark Lachance, or Mr. Lucky. Now, he's a serial entrepreneur, strategic thinker, and investor. And he's a renowned figure in the business world, one who possesses a deep understanding of blitzscaling companies. Now, having owned and operated several businesses that have experienced hyper growth through creative business development and lead generation, he's a master of sales and marketing and continues to apply and grow his expertise through current projects. He's had many successful exits for which have resulted in public offerings. Now, decades of business experience and great success does not come without some failure. So Mark actually made a poor real estate investment in 2006, which led him to depression and near bankruptcy. And he suffered crushing defeats only to rise again and win. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
I guess you actually did read the book, Ty, because you had to go deep to get all that information.
I'm telling you, you've done some amazing stuff. I mean, literally the whole show could just be your bio.
Awesome. Thank you. It was great.
So you've been through a lot. I mean, I think four companies successfully that resulted in public offerings. So that's a lot of exits that you've had, with four of those being an IPO. So, what's the secret? I mean, starting from the beginning, what do you think some of the most important things are to build a successful company from the ground up, from the beginning?
Well, I think, look, over the years, I'm now 52, believe it or not. I know I look like I'm 35, Ty. So over the years, look, you learn and you're just, I guess your awareness and your ability to do things quicker and faster gets better and better over time and through more experience. But I would say if I go back to the first successful exit, it was all about, understanding leadership, understanding how to motivate, and understanding how to put the right people in the right place. And then that's a skill that you need to refine over time. And it's all about the people. And it's all about, in the book that you spoke about, in the book, The Lucky Formula, I talk about what's called the entrepreneur's dilemma. And I think when an entrepreneur starts a business, they believe that they have to be the smartest and the best and the brightest, and they have to know everything in their company. Well, that's a failure, or that's a recipe for failure, big time, because you cannot do everything. You cannot know everything that's going on. You have to put the right people in the right place, let them do their job, and let them thrive. So I think that's kind of a huge key to success.
You think in the beginning that it's really the hyper learning aspect? Because what I found about this is that, first of all, there's this imposter syndrome, which I think all of us that have been, started businesses go through. And what I found is I think it comes from, business owners getting in, not knowing even nearly what they need to run a successful business. And then that being overwhelmed them because they're in that position. But the reality is, it seems to me like you have to be a hyper learner. Like you have to be willing to learn. It's not a matter of, like you said, knowing it all coming in. Is it a matter of just in the beginning, knowing willingness to learn what you need to learn before you can even get to a point where you have the money to hire those people?
100%. Absolutely. So I'll give you an example. It was in 2000, right after my mega real estate failure that you alluded to, which was in 2006, 7, and crushing me in 2008. I was kind of in the depths of despair, and I picked up the phone and basically telemarketed my way out of hell, and was able to raise capital and start a company in the payment space. But that company started in 2009, and fast forward about a year and a half later, end of 2010, I found myself sitting at my desk and just overwhelmed with emails and overwhelmed with, just waves and waves of information, because I didn't know how to run a company. So I needed to become a hyper learner, like you just said. I needed to get a mentor that understood. Okay, at that time I had 215 employees. I never, ever brought a company to that level. And it was kind of sort of the imposter syndrome, like you just said, right? So I'm like, do I even deserve to be here? So I had to get a mentor and a coach. And so I did just that. I was able to get to a Tony Robbins conference, the Business Mastery. And that kind of big time opened my eyes on I was the problem. And the problem was that I didn't have the right people in the right place. And the problem was me, and I had to be the center of attention and the ego center and blah, blah, blah. So yes, you have to be a hyper learner and be coachable and be willing to be told and accept it without it hurting your little tiny ego.
So when you get to that point, and you hit on something interesting that, you raise capital to be able to launch this thing. And that's what I really think is interesting because, and I think of this like people that go to Harvard or Wharton versus people that don't, right? And I'm too generalized, but like, I don't understand how to raise capital. Like I know how to bootstrap a business. I know how to take an idea and then, scrap together money and then make a little money and put the money back into it and, bootstrap my way to 8 figures plus. But then there's this whole other side that seems to do it at a rapid pace because of the ability to raise money. So in all that you've done, is there a right or wrong there? I mean, do you bootstrap or do you think it's better to come in and raise capital to be able to like build it bigger, faster?
Well, I've done both, right? I've done both sides. So it depends. Do you want to give up equity in the beginning? So if you're bootstrapping, basically you're bootstrapping and spending your own money and your own resources and to build this thing and holding on to your equity. But sometimes it makes sense to get a strategic investor. So for example, the time in 2009 when I went out and raised capital, it was strategic. I needed somebody that had a banking relationship in Canada. They had it, and they wanted to bring in an equity partner. So at that point I had to do it, but roll the clock back 10 years earlier, I bootstrapped all the way up to selling the company to somebody that took it public. So look, it depends where you want to go and how fast you want it. You just said it, how fast do you want to grow? And Maxi Media, my current company, bootstrapped it from the beginning. I didn't take a penny of money other than taking loans from the bank. So lines of credit. So lines of credit is not giving up equity. That's using the bank's money to grow your business. So you can do it both ways, right? You could take equity, or you could get a line of credit from a bank.
Which of you like more? Which of you enjoyed more? But doing the debt side, growing the business through debt, or growing it by the equity side by actually raising money by giving up equity. I mean, because the hindsight, what I see from the outside, I've never raised capital, but the fear is always that I explain it that I'm not like ready for adult supervision yet. Like, I mean, literally, that's how my partner and I describe it. Like, we're having the time of our life. We love it. Like, we don't want adult supervision. But I mean, that's what you're afraid of, right? Is people coming in and dictating what you're doing and then, not serving your customer and then serving the needs of the You get it. Like all these myths float around in our head. Is it accurate or is it not? I mean,
well, I can answer it by telling you my story. So when I was the company I started in 2010, I was a 30% equity holder. So I didn't have majority. I couldn't call the shots. It pissed me off, to be quite honest with you. I couldn't call the shots. Now I have majority. I can call the shots. It's my money. I'm doing whatever I want. And it's grown from, 0 to big time because I could call the shots. And I'm not saying that I'm the smartest guy in the world, but I am saying that if you're open to coaching and you're open to surrounding yourself with smart people, you can grow without somebody else's money. So I don't like adult supervision either. I'm telling you right now. So, if and when the day that we sell this company, I'm not going along with it. I can't be. I'm not employable. Probably like you, Ty. I'm not a good employee at all. So
yeah, I found that in the military. I was like 6 months in. I'm like, this is not a good idea. Apparently, I did not do well following orders. So 3.5 more years to go, though. I'm out of this mess. So that makes a lot of sense. And when you're talking about hiring the right people, there's this adage that the people that got you here won't get you there. And I'm living that right now. Like, right, we've had the very first time go hire somebody on the outside to run our team. Man, that was nerve-wracking. So how do you go about getting the right people for those right seats? Because these are pretty big decisions when you're putting a lot of people in charge of different areas of the company.
So look, you got to let your ego down, right? So let's say you're going to hire somebody. Like, I'm a sales and marketing guy, but I'm not running the sales department and I'm not running the marketing department. So I have to hire somebody better than me in sales to run the department and step back and let them run. And then you're going to manage them, but you're going to manage them loosely. At least that's what I do. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to, but that's what I do. And then you just manage by spreadsheet. So you say, look, is he hitting the targets? Is he hitting the numbers? You'll guide, you'll give, you'll motivate, but if you want to run a successful business and have people be loyal to you, you cannot be on top of them with the thumb. You can't do it. So you've got to let them lead in their way. And if you make a mistake, by the way, you hired the wrong person, you have to take a next step, which is move on and get somebody else in that position.
What have you found bootstrapping businesses? What have you found is really the key to success right from the beginning? Because having the right people makes sense. But you and I both know that, a lot of people that aren't coming in with a lot of capital to launch their business, they don't have a lot of money to start people or to hire people. And that's where I think the problem occurs. They take on everything, right? Then it comes time for them to delegate. And a lot of them never accomplish that. Like they're stuck in the 6-figure range because they can't ever, bring somebody else in because they think they could do it all better. So what's the key in the beginning before you can even hire people to kind of get yourself on the right path for success?
Well, I think the key is, again, understanding that you're not the best at everything. And so I learned this from Dan Sullivan, which is strategic coach. It's basically, look, if you want to grow your business, blitzscale your business, you cannot do everything. There's 24 hours in a day and 8 of them are for sleep, right? So think about that. So you need to delegate. So for example, I've got right out the door, I've got a chef. I hired a chef to cook my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that saves me an hour and a half a day. Think about that. That saves me an hour and a half a day. So now I'm able to grow the business. I'm able to think strategically. I'm able to think about, go over the business plan and think to the future, because our job as entrepreneurs is think vision, think to the future. It's not to run the day-to-day job. Somebody else can do that better than me. I have a media buying company and I don't buy media. I don't even know how to buy media. I used to know how to buy media. I don't. So what I'm going to say is drop your ego and understand if you want to grow a business, you can't do it alone and you need people around you. And the best example I give is you probably heard this before, Ty, is Henry Ford. When he was interviewed by a bunch of journalists, they're like, well, we don't think you're that intelligent. And so Ford is like, well, ask me any question. And they asked him a question about finance. He picked up his phone and called the CFO. CFO answered the question. Well, tell me about engineering. Called the head of engineering. It called the head of operations. So he didn't have to have all the answers, but he had the right people. Now, the next question I think you asked is, if you're bootstrapping, how do you bring those people? I'm going to tell you how to bring those people. You bring undervalued assets. So a lot of people say that Gen Z or the youth are lazy or entitled. That's bullshit. That's not accurate at all. You find the right ones. Our team is probably, we have just about 300 employees right now, and over 70% are Gen Z, over 70%. And not only that, offshore, you could find amazing talent. We have a huge team in the Philippines, right? That's built out. They're amazing. They're much better than North American workers, I'll tell you. And you can get those at a very reasonable price to do a lot of the work that you shouldn't be doing as a leader. You shouldn't be doing, in mundane is maybe not the right word, but the mundane tasks. You should not be doing that. Go to the Philippines, go to Upwork, go to, there's plenty of other services, Fiverr, Upwork, and you'll have to go through, probably 4 or 5 people, but you get the right one. And, around you get Gen Z. So when we started Maxi Media, which is my current company, we started TikTok 2 years ago. TikTokers are Gen Z. They're 18 to 22-year-olds, right? So guess what our whole TikTok staff is? Gen Z, running a multi-million dollar a month in revenue business. Gen Z is running it. So to get that kind of ego out, let a 22-year-old run your department. Who's heading it? We have 150 creators on our staff, and a 22-year-old young lady's running it. How about that? Right. So you don't have to have, the seasoned veteran of 20 years. Sometimes that's counterproductive. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that's great. And I really appreciate that. It's really solid insight. What else about outside of people? What kind of things do you think have to be in a solid business foundation from the very start?
Well, look, I mean, you mentioned earlier, you didn't give a percentage, but I think it's like 96% of businesses fail within 5 years, right? Something like that. And why? Because they're underfunded. That's a huge piece, being underfunded. 2, the leader not really having a goal or a target or understanding where they're going. And 3, not having the right people. So I think, funding is absolutely, that's a lifeblood of a business. So before you quit your job or before you launch your business, make sure you have enough funding or enough runway for, X amount of months or even years.
Makes a lot of sense. To do so. How do you get money in your world? I mean, obviously you have made money and then rolled it over into new businesses. So you're found that starting it with some of your own cash, but what have you found are some of the best paths if you're not raising money by giving up equity to be able to get the money you need to start the business?
Well, I mean, look, if you if you read a book called The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach, right? He suggests you put away 10 to 20% of your earnings, set it aside and set it aside and set it every single paycheck and make it automatic. So that's a way, just setting aside capital, on a regular basis. And number two is bring in a business partner that might have more capital than you. You might have the idea, but your business partner might have the cash. Right. So that's another idea. So setting aside cash, or basically, going hat in hand to friends and family and begging them for money is another way. I've done that before.
Did they invest? Did you give them a rate of return? Were they happy with that?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no, but I eventually pay them back over time. So
you mentioned TikTok. How are you finding that, new businesses are able to use social media to be able to grow at scale? You think has it made it easier, and what kind of strategies and things should they be focusing on?
Well, it's funny. I saw a crazy video last night on there's I forget the name of it, but it's a chocolate company in Montreal, and Hershey just made a bid for them and they rejected the offer. But the owners, there's 3 owners, and they do these crazy, well done videos. And so, they got a ton of notoriety on it. So the best way to use social media is listen to Gary Vaynerchuk and do everything he tells you to do if you're a small business. Literally get online, start posting, start telling your story. Telling your story is everything, right? You know that. Story is everything. And then once you get your story out there, then people start getting behind you. But look, it all depends what industry you're in. So that's kind of a tough question. I mean, are you buying media? Are you not buying media? Or do you want to grow organic? What's your budgets? That's maybe a 2-hour call, Ty. We can have that too if you want.
Well, that's interesting to know. I mean, because you're in the media space. So right now, what do you think are some of the best strategies to get customers if you are a startup? So I'm a startup, limited budget, right? Want to get customers. What kind of strategy do you employ to make that happen?
Okay, so you could buy ads on all the platforms, right? So Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. We're doing very well on Snapchat and TikTok. So you can buy media. You can also organically post. And again, it depends what industry you're in and what you want to do. But being out there, Gary Vaynerchuk will tell you, post 4 videos a day on TikTok. Same thing on Facebook, same thing on Instagram, same thing on Snapchat. So it's being consistently out there. And again, you don't have to do that yourself, right? So get somebody in the Gen Z that does it for you, that understands media buying. It's not that difficult to learn. But if you're a small company, what I would suggest is sales, and along with cash, sales and marketing is the second, the biggest necessity in a business. If you can't drive in sales and you can't drive in customers, then you don't have a business. So I would say that, that's what I've studied over the years is sales and marketing. And I've studied how to recruit the right people that know how to do that. So it's all of the above. It's learn it yourself first, and then bring in the right people that can do it for you over time.
And what do you do if that's not your strengths? Because it's interesting. I run into people that's not their strength. Like they're outsourcing marketing and sales because they don't know it. And I'm like, wow, that would be really hard to grow a business. Because like you looking at growing a business, like that's what I decided to make my skill sets. Because you and I both know, like if you could do good in those 2 areas, you really can't fail. Like you can launch just about any kind of business if you know how to market and sell. But a lot of people don't. So like, what do you advise those people that like marketing and strength isn't their interest or their skill set?
So I would say you can do a couple of different things. Find people that you can find undervalued talent, youth, young people. Like my brother, for example, is in real estate, and he's got my brother's he's 45 right now, 46. And he's got a young guy running his sales department, right? He's got a 25-year-old running his sales department. So you go get talent that's undervalued that you don't have to break the bank for. Or I'll get back to partnering with somebody. Partner with somebody that's a master salesperson or a master business development person. They might not have capital. They might not know the back end, right? They might not know technology. You might be a tech guy. You might understand technology. You might understand, how to run a SaaS model, blah, 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 but you may not know sales. So go get a partner. Again, partner or hire undervalued talent. That's the way you do it.
What do you think about profitability? Because you made a point earlier, right? You take off 10, 20%, you put it here. Profit first. You've read it. I've read it. Great book as well. But these are we don't do this. I mean, I see so many entrepreneurs that they I reinvest everything back into the business is what we go with. But the reality is we just don't have a grasp on profitability. And I went through business many years that way and then got a grasp. And now I live and die by profit margins. But what do you think there? What do you advise? What's the best way for somebody to really start making their business profitable versus take everything they have and feel like they're just reinvesting it back into the business?
Well, every single day I go through a P&L, so profit and loss statement. And I understand exactly what cash we have in hand, exactly what our receivables are, exactly where we, what we are on a daily basis. So that's number one. You have to have a handle on finance. And if you don't, there's a pretty good book that I have up there. It's MBA for Dummies and Accounting for Dummies, which can teach you pretty quickly. And it's not that hard to run a P&L. Is not that hard. It's basically revenue minus expenses and what do you have down, what do you have at the bottom line? And it's not difficult to learn that. So I would definitely suggest you learn that. So, and then later on down the line, then you bring in an accountant or you bring in a bookkeeper or somebody like that. But you need to have a handle on your cash. You need to have a handle on where you're at. And then, what's your bottom line? And then you take that bottom line and reinvest in the business, reinvest in the growth. So we made a decision 2 years ago to take everything and roll it back into the company, right? At that point, now we're taking pretty good dividends, but at that point we rolled everything back in. So we blitzscaled. We call it blitzscaling. So we went from 4 employees 2.5 years ago to now over 300. So we skyrocketed this thing pretty quick, but we made a decision to take all of our profit and roll it back in. So that's one strategy.
I like it. So it really depends on kind of how fast you want to scale. And then at some point, I guess you pull it back, focus on profitability, and then slow down the scaling because you're not putting it all back in.
Well, you get to a point where, there's a lot of fires out there. Like you hired the wrong person in this division, you rather hired the wrong person in that division. And then you have to scale it back and clean up the mess and then step up from there. So it's kind of like grow, plateau.
How do you stop that? It drives me crazy, man. I mean, Mark, it just drives me crazy. It's like, you sit there and you're scaling and then everything breaks. You're like, I thought I fixed everything and built systems where it could sustain scale. And then you're 6-9 months sometimes fixing it in that plateau before you can go back up. I mean, is there a way to just stop this and be able, because you've done so many businesses, so many exits, you've seen further ahead than most of us can see. Is there a solution, a secret solution here to stop the plateauing and just build it where you don't have that? Because it drives me crazy.
Get the right people. That's it. That's all I can tell you. Have the right people. I mean, if you want to grow from 4 people to 300, you better have a solid management team. You better have a solid tech team, a solid sales team, a solid head of operations, right? So our chief operating officer is a rock star. You need that, and you better pay him right, or guess what's going to happen? Somebody's going to poach him pretty quickly. So, and at some point you have to start giving out equity as well. We just gave out a stock option plan, which is not typical in the digital marketing space, but we did it. And that's going to help us retain our top talent, because right now, we used to have a huge advantage, a geographic advantage, and it was a language-based advantage. So we were sitting in Montreal, all the big sitting in Montreal, and there's a bunch of English universities. So McGill University, Concordia, and none of the big corporations would hire an Anglophone because they needed to speak French. So that was a huge advantage for us to get, kids with MBAs and kids with masters that couldn't get a job. So we got them at a very reasonable rate, but now that's gone, right? So you have to come up with another way to get that huge advantage. But now it's gone. We're thinking of other ways.
How do you come up with the initial idea of a business? Because I've seen this from 2 different ways, right? I see this of a Steve Jobs of the world where legitimately sees like a solution and has the foresight to say, wow, like these computers could be revolutionary to how we handle life. And then you've got a Jeff Bezos where it's not that he was ever passionate about something. He came in, he said, this internet's going to be big. What's the best strategic play to be able to operate here? So I think there's a lot of it of, you find something you're passionate about. I'm passionate about business. I could tell you my story, not having it hurt me, that I'm like, oh, revelation, it exists. I'm going to help other people overcome it, right? No, that progressive path. But then there's people like Bezos that, he just came in and built a business completely based on strategy, not necessarily to solve a problem that he was dealt. But what's your thoughts there? Is there a right or wrong, or what's some of the best ways to come up with an idea launch a business? A lot of people ask me that question.
Well, what we see in marketing is everybody's stealing from everybody, meaning everybody's using everybody's creatives and ideas. And so it's not wrong to find a business and that, but you get into the blue ocean, red ocean thing, but forget about that. To find a business that's already working, because if you it's an ad campaign. If an ad campaign is already working, you know it works, so duplicate it. If you're in a business that's already working, you know it works, so duplicate it. So best way, go to a trade show. If you love cryptocurrency, go to a cryptocurrency trade show. If you love any kind of sales, payments, or whatever you want, go to that kind of trade show. Find the businesses that are crushing it and duplicate it. It's not that hard. I mean, when I was in the payment space for a long time, this is a complete Me Too business, but there's been so many millionaires and almost billionaires, no, actually billionaires that have been created out of the payment space even after, some of the big companies were sold years and years ago. So you can be a Me Too and still create a large, massive organization.
So you think find something that's successful and then look at it and then kind of see what you could do to make it better and improve.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting because somebody said this to me months ago and I can't get it out of my head, which is that, industries don't change from within, they change from outside. It's somebody that looks at the industry from the outside and comes in with new ideas, suggestions, and change it. And that makes sense to me, right? Like, so, taxi companies are too close to their problems that they're fixing little things here and there. And then somebody else standing on a curb says, wow, what if we do this? And they're looking at it from the outside, come in and create Uber, right? So it's very, I love what you say, because like, it's the outsiders that come in that see things from a different perspective than the people in the fight. That typically are the ones that, come up with the groundbreaking innovations that are just, whole industry verticals are created.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely.
What about success factors? Have you found that entrepreneurs really should possess certain skill sets to have a better chance of succeeding?
Well, I do a leadership seminar and it has 15 points of leadership. And I don't have my sheet up, but so a successful entrepreneur first has to be able to, show vision. They have to be able to show vision, because if nobody believes in your vision, you're not going anywhere. That's number one. Number two, you have to obviously have work ethic. You have to be able to sell. You have to, you have to be able to sell your dream, your idea, which is like showing vision. You have to be motivated. You have to be a motivator. You have to understand how to articulate. You have a positive mental attitude to attract people with you. Yeah. So there's a lot, there's about 15 different points. And in my book, I talk about mastering 20 external and internal conditions, and then taking action too. So do you have work ethic or not? If you don't have work ethic and you don't take action, well, I don't care what kind of idea you have, it's not going to go anywhere.
What about strategy? Have you found that there are certain things you should have in mind strategic wise as you grow a company? Because like you went from 4 to 300 employees, right? Most people that would scare the daylights out of them in 3-4 years time. So like, but that's obviously on a strategy you have. You tested something, look, it worked, and you massively scaled it. So how much does strategy tie into it? What kind of things and insight do you have about strategy?
Well, of course, you need to have the right strategy, the right go-to-market strategy, the right hiring strategy, the right firing strategy. So how do you learn that? With reading books like Winning, or my whole bookshelf's right in front of me. I can list them off for you right now, but it gets back to what you said earlier about, being somebody it's interested in gaining knowledge, right? Somebody that's interested in listening to others that are successful, getting a mentor that's more successful than you. So if you're young, how do you understand the right strategy? Well, it's about talking to people that have been there before and asking them what the right strategy is. What was their go-to-market strategy? How do they do it? So you can learn, I believe that you can learn anything, and people are willing to give their playbook. Like, for example, I was at a conference a couple of years ago and Vaynerchuk was speaking, and somebody said, "Hey, Gary," somebody raised the hand and said, "Gary, why are you giving away your whole playbook?" He's like, "Well, I'm giving my whole playbook away because in this crowd of 2,000, maybe 3 of you are going to do anything with it. So it's not really a threat to me." But the point is, the information's out there. People will give you their strategies if you just listen and are willing to ask the right questions.
You mentioned earlier, and referenced payment space, about companies that come in and billionaires are made out of that, right? But what happens there? How do you grow a business to become one of the leading companies in the space?
Well, I'll give you the example of the company that I sold that ultimately went public. So in 2001, I moved to Canada to get equity in a company called Pivotal Payments, which changed its name to Nuvei right now. So what we did is I was there for 5 years, and we grew. I was the senior vice president of sales, and we grew it from 0 employees to 240 within that 5-year period. And then so we grew it organically. And then when I left, he went to raise capital through Goldman Sachs and other PE firms. He went on an acquisition strategy. So, you've got your organic strategy, you've got your indirect sales, your direct sales, and then you've got your acquisition strategy. And that's how he took it from, the value of the company, I'll call it 100 million when I left, took it to billion. It was by acquiring, companies that would be accretive to the bottom line. So there's an acquisition strategy as well.
I appreciate you coming on today. And there's so much we could dive into. I mean, you've given us really good insight, actionable info that, like you said, nobody will probably take action on.
I'm not saying nobody. There are some that will.
3 out of 2,000 will take action.
That's what Gary says. That's not my numbers.
I'm just messing. But it's very accurate, right? I mean, and that's what I find too, is, we're really big on telling people how to do what we charge for. And then people ask me that a lot too. And it's like, look, if you're really passionate about what you do, you should want to help as many people as you can. And then there's a fraction of everybody that's willing to then pay, you for that solution. So I really hits close to home what you're saying. Where can everybody else go to be able to learn more, to be able to learn, like we just basically icing, I mean, the very top layer we even got into today. So where can everybody go to learn more and get more insight about kind of really how to grow and scale massively?
Well, there's an awesome book by a best-selling author called The Lucky Formula.
Heard about The Lucky Formula. That's just a fantastic book.
They can go to my website, marklachance.com, and take the lucky quiz as well. And my book talks about, look, the factors and the conditions on what make you lucky and successful. So you start there, but I would devour personal development books. I give you lists of books in my book. So read mine first, and then take all of the back of the book. I give lists and lists of books on where you should start and where you should read. And look, it might seem daunting, but you start one by one by one, and you build your experience over time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Thanks for coming on with us today, Mark.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So listen, if you're watching this, I think it was, Warren Buffett, one of my favorite quotes is that, it's good to learn from your mistakes and it's better to learn from others' mistakes, right? So Mark is somebody that's been there, built many successful businesses, 4 of which have been public. I mean, look, I don't know about you. I've never met anybody in my life that's ever taken 4 businesses public. So it goes to show you the knowledge that he has and the knowledge that's in the Lucky Formula book as well. I'm going to read it. I think you should too. So what you need to do is go to marklachance.com and just start by taking the quiz. So that's Mark, M-A-R-K, Lachance, LACHANCE.com. Take the quiz. That will get you started. It's the first step towards getting you down the road of building a highly successful, profitable business. And Mark, can they also go to maxi.media as well?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not much on there, so you can
Perfect.
Go check it out. It's not going to tell you anything.
So make sure you go to marklachance.com and make sure you also grab the Lucky Formula. I'm going to also include a direct link to his book in the show resources page. So thanks for tuning in. Remember, knowledge really doesn't mean anything if you're not taking action on it. So make sure that you take action right now. 2 steps to do. First of all, buy the book, The Lucky Formula. I'm going to get it. You should too. I mean, it makes no sense for you not to have this, including the fact that I would buy it for nothing else other than the fact that all of his suggested books that have helped him accomplish success he has are all in the back. But again, we just kind of scratch the surface of all the stuff that's in the Lucky Formula. It literally is a roadmap for you to succeed based on all of his past failures that have got him here. So grab the Lucky Formula, action step number 1. Action step number 2, take the quiz. Go to marklachance.com, take the quiz, and that's really the first step down the path of building a highly successful, profitable business. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.